15 top doctors failed, but a 14-year-old black son of a janitor saw what no one else could. Reading a dusty old medical journal, he uncovered the true cause of the billionaire's decline. What happened next not only saved a life, but also shattered the arrogance of society. 15 doctors, the best in the country, couldn't save the billionaire. But a 14-year-old black son of a cleaning lady, a hidden medical genius, saw what no one else could. "Another dose of morphine now," shouted Dr. Peterson, the head physician. The monitors in the private hospital room sounded deafening alarms, a digital symphony of a life slipping away. Tech billionaire William Cross was dying, and the country's best specialists were completely at a loss. They had tried everything they knew, every cutting-edge treatment, every expensive medication, every consultation with every specialist on the planet. Nothing worked. Outside the luxurious room, Kevin, a 14-year-old boy, cleaned the hallway with mechanical movements. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and worn-out sneakers, a stark contrast to the crisp white lab coats and expensive suits that filled the sterile halls. His eyes, however, were not on the floor he was sweeping. They were fixed on the monitor screens visible through the half-open door. At 14, he knew that hospital better than his own home. While the other kids his age were playing video games, he was spending his free time in the hospital library, devouring medical books and journals that were about to be discarded. The librarians often let him take them, happy to find a home for the outdated volumes. Kevin saw the doctors moving in a frantic blur, their faces etched with confusion and frustration. The doctors had diagnosed William Cross with a rare form of chronic pain, and they were treating it with an aggressive cocktail of medications. But the more they treated, the worse the billionaire got. Kevin knew why. He had read an article about a rare side effect of the very drug they were using. It was so uncommon that only 2 cases had ever been documented. The article warned that for some patients, the medication caused a severe allergic reaction that resembled the symptoms of the original pain. In their haste and arrogance, the doctors had missed the simple truth staring them in the face. They were treating a patient for an illness he no longer had, while his body was slowly being poisoned by their own medications. Kevin wanted to shout, to burst into the room and tell them to stop. But what was he? Just a boy, a janitor's son. Who would believe him? He was invisible, a ghost in the hospital halls. He was the one who was always there but never seen. But as he watched the billionaire's vitals plummet on the screen, he knew he couldn't stay silent. He had to act. Kevin's hands trembled, a silent battle raging within him. What if he was wrong? What if he was right, and they just laughed at him? He was just a boy with no degree, no authority, and no social standing to back him up. But his mother, Maria, a small, dignified woman with tired eyes, saw the fear and knowledge in his face. She stopped him in the hallway, her voice a soft, encouraging whisper. "You know something, Kevin. I can see it. You have to tell them." He shook his head. "They won't listen, Mama. I'm just a kid." "I'm nobody." Maria gently took his hand. "To them, maybe, but to God you are a genius. And if you have a chance to save a life, you have to take it, no matter what they say." Her words were a shield against his fear, a reminder of the quiet strength he carried within him. With a newfound courage, Kevin walked toward the private room. He pushed the door open, the sound echoing in the tense silence. Dr. Peterson, a man whose arrogance was as big as his reputation, turned to him with a sneer. "What is this? Who let the cleaning crew's child in here?" he demanded. The other doctors stared, their faces a mix of confusion and indignation. Kevin's voice was small at first, but it grew with every word. "You're treating him for the wrong thing. He doesn't have chronic pain. He's suffering from a drug-induced allergic reaction." The room erupted in laughter. "A what?" Dr. Peterson spat out, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Are you out of your mind? This boy has read a book and thinks he's an expert." Kevin stood his ground, his gaze unwavering. "You've all missed it. He's not having pain from his original disease. He's having a reaction to the medication you're using. The symptoms mimic the illness." Dr. Peterson's face turned crimson with rage. "Get him out of here! This is preposterous!" The audacity of this boy, interrupting a team of certified specialists with a ludicrous theory. The nurses, loyal to their superior, moved to escort Kevin out, but he broke free. The article was in the Journal of Modern Medicine, Volume 7, 2018. Case Study 2. "You dismissed it because it was a single-patient study. But it's him. It's William Cross!" he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. He pointed to the monitors. "He has increased eosinophil count, and a low-grade fever that won't go down. It's a classic allergic response. The more medicine you give him, the worse he gets." The room fell silent. Dr. Peterson scoffed again. "Nonsense. He's a janitor's son with a borrowed theory from a dusty old book. Don't listen to him. It's an insult to everything we've worked for." The next few minutes were a blur of chaos. As the doctors argued among themselves, a new alarm blared from the monitors. William Cross's blood pressure dropped dramatically, his heart rate spiking. He was going into shock. A nurse cried out, "He's crashing! He's going to seize!" Dr. Peterson's face, once full of smug arrogance, was now a mask of pure terror. "He's not responding. Give him more medication!" "A stronger dose," he screamed, his voice thick with panic. But the other doctors hesitated. They had tried this before, and it had only made things worse. They were at a complete loss. They had exhausted their knowledge, their resources, and their pride. The billionaire, the man who had built an empire with his own hands, was dying in front of a dozen of the world's most brilliant minds, and they could do nothing but watch. Kevin, seeing the fear in their eyes, knew this was his last chance. He ran to the bedside and looked down at William Cross, his face pale and clammy. He saw the subtle, panicked tremor in the billionaire's hands, a silent plea for help. "Sir, please," Kevin pleaded, his voice choked with emotion. "You're dying because of what they're giving you. It's a rare drug allergy. You need an adrenaline shot to stop the reaction, and an IV with saline to flush the poison out. But we need to act now!" Dr. Peterson, still in a state of shock, let out a hysterical laugh. "You're going to inject a billionaire with a drug because a cleaning boy told you to? You're insane!" But William Cross, in a brief moment of lucidity, heard Kevin's words. He had been a silent observer of the chaos, and he had seen the doctor's failure. He had seen their expensive equipment and panicked faces. And now he saw a young boy, a stranger, whose eyes held a truth that the others couldn't see. With a tremendous effort, he slowly lifted his trembling hand and pointed a shaky finger at Kevin. The security guards, a team of ex-Special Forces agents, looked at each other confused. One of them, a man with a scarred face and a solemn demeanor, took a step forward. "He wants you to listen to the boy," he said, his voice a low rumble. "The doctors have failed. He's giving him a chance." The nurses looked at each other in stunned silence. Dr. Peterson, defeated, could only shake his head in disbelief as the billionaire, who had built his entire life on logic and data, chose to put his trust in an unknown child. With the billionaire's silent approval, Kevin took control. "Get a nurse with a syringe and an adrenaline shot! We have to stop the allergic reaction!" he ordered, his voice echoing with a new, powerful authority. He pointed to a young, hesitant nurse. "You, get an IV of saline and a large-gauge needle. We need to flush his system." The nurse, seeing the firm resolve in his face, complied immediately. Dr. Peterson stood frozen, watching in bewildered horror as a janitor's son gave orders that his own medical team was following. Kevin took the syringe, his hand steady as he directed the nurse to administer the shot to the billionaire. "He needs a slow drip of saline to rehydrate and flush the drugs out. The allergic reaction is the problem, not the original pain," Kevin explained, his voice calm and authoritative. The next moments were excruciating. Everyone held their breath, their eyes fixed on the monitors. A mix of fear and cautious hope filled the room. The nurses, following Kevin's instructions, worked with a speed and efficiency they hadn't shown before. As the saline began to flow, the monitors that had been blaring alarms for hours slowly began to quiet. The digital symphony of a life fading away was replaced by a steady, rhythmic beep. William Cross's blood pressure began to rise. His heart rate stabilized, and his breathing, which had been shallow and ragged, deepened. A nurse, her eyes wide with shock, whispered, "It's working. His vitals are stabilizing." The room erupted in a collective gasp of disbelief and relief. Kevin, seeing the steady green lines on the monitor, let out a shaky breath and leaned against the wall, the adrenaline leaving his body. He was no longer a ghost. He was a hero. The doctors, including Dr. Peterson, were speechless. They had spent days trying to cure an illness that was no longer there, using the latest, most expensive technologies. But this boy, this simple janitor's son, had saved a life with nothing more than his keen observation and knowledge. Dr. Peterson, humbled and defeated, looked at Kevin with a mixture of awe and shame. "How did you know?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Kevin simply pointed to the discarded medical journals stacked in a cart in the hallway. "They said everything you needed to know," he said softly. 2 weeks later, William Cross, looking healthier than ever, sat in a private room. He was in his business suit, ready to go home. He looked at Kevin and Maria, who were standing nervously at the door. "Kevin," he said, his voice full of warmth and gratitude, "you saved my life." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple black card. "This isn't a check," he said, handing it to Kevin. "It's a scholarship to the finest medical school in the country. Everything is taken care of." Kevin's eyes widened, filled with a mix of disbelief and awe. But I'm not a doctor. I'm just a kid," he stammered. William Cross smiled. You are more than that. You have a gift, and a doctor's mind. The world needs people like you. I need people like you. He turned to Maria. Your son, madam, is a genius. You should be so proud. Maria, her eyes welling up with tears, hugged Kevin tightly. Kevin's life was changed forever. He went on to become a top medical student, using his innate gift and passion to help others. He wasn't just the janitor's son anymore, but a future doctor, a brilliant mind who proved that true knowledge and courage come from the most unexpected places. Dr. Peterson, for his part, was never the same. He never fully recovered from the public embarrassment, and while he kept his job, he had lost the moral authority he once commanded. His colleagues often reminded him of the day a 14-year-old black boy taught him medicine. Kevin's story proves that true genius does not need recognition to exist. It just waits for the right opportunity to transform the world. Sometimes, those whom society trains to be invisible are exactly the ones who see what everyone else has missed. The best revenge against prejudice is not anger but success that his oppressors cannot deny.